It is with great pride and anticipation that we welcome the Honorable Sri Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of the Republic of India, to the shores of Trinidad and Tobago on July 3rd and 4th, 2025. This historic visit of the Prime Minister of the Republic of India decades marks a new chapter in the enduring friendship between our two nations. Prime Minister Modi's visit is not only symbolic, it is strategic. It signals India's growing engagement with the Caribbean and its recognition of Trinidad and Tobago as a key partner in the region. This visit reaffirms our commitment to South-South cooperation and to building bridges of opportunity between our peoples. We look forward to deepening our partnership with the Republic of India for the prosperity of our citizens and the advancement of our shared global vision.
Good evening, TNT family. Welcome back to Yellow is the Code, and I have Mr. Suman Singh with me. I hope that a few others will join us tonight. We saw the entry of the Honorable Prime Minister of India to Trinidad and Tobago, and it was a very successful reception for Mr. Modi into Trinidad and Tobago, and he felt very much at home. We seen there, and he opened the door to us with many things: technology, education, economic, support. So, welcome, Mr. Singh. I'd like to hear your input on this. We had shared some kind of ideas before on this program, but actually we see it materialize with Mr. Modi actually making his way to Trinidad and making these offers to our people or to the island state. And, it's very exciting to see what we speculate and hope for. And it's in action. So, Mr. Singh, I would like to hear your views on this.
Okay, well, good evening, Gary, and good evening to all our listeners and all those who are locked on to our various platforms and our regular listeners to our program. And today was indeed a historic visit, by the Indian Prime Minister. He had mentioned that he was there 25 years ago, not as Prime Minister. So this is actually his second visit. And one thing I'd like to touch on, I saw some dissent in the news media and in social media, some, arguments or critique, why should he be bestowed the highest honor of Trinidad and Tobago? And I don't know where that is coming from, but probably it's painted by a few people. I don't think they're in the majority, but if you notice and you saw, other islands of the Caribbean has already bestowed the same honor to him, including Barbados, Guyana, and Dominica. So why this dissenting, media commentary like this is a big issue when in fact it is not? So that's, with that being out of the way, you know, India has, I don't know how many of us have been lucky enough to go there, but what you see in the press and what's been printed in the newspaper and so on, only when you go there, then you see the real India. You got to go and see the country itself, because when you think of India, you think of a lot of people, a lot of poverty, a lot of traffic jams, a lot of smog, and sting in the streets. And these are all true. These are all correct. But you don't hear about the 450 million Indians who are the middle class, who can travel and go any part of the world, who send their children to any part of the world for higher education and studies. And that large middle class, for those who are economic minded, that 450 million people is greater than the population of the United States, in total, or all of Europe combined. So imagine you have a wealthy set of people whose population is more than the entire US population, that has the ability to do that and travel and for education purposes and so on. In fact, let me give you one statistic. India played Australia this past winter, 2024 to 2025. And there were 150,000 Indians who traveled to watch the Test cricket in Australia. Could you imagine, these people have to be housed, so they have to have, hotel rooms, they have to be fed. It means you have to have food for them. They have to be transported. They have to buy the tickets to get into the stadiums. And of course, visit the different entertainment sites and so on. Could you imagine we in the Caribbean, if we have an Indian team playing West Indies, can get half of that amount of people coming to the Caribbean to look at cricket? Can you imagine the economic spin-off of that? So that's just one aspect of it. The other aspect which I like to touch on is that, but again, for those who have not gone or visited there, if you go to places like in Bangalore and Mumbai and these areas, these are highly technological developed communities, business communities, and technology companies. In fact, IIT, which is Indian Institute of Technology, and IIM, Indian Institute of Management, is ranked among the highest and best and most preferred technology and management institutions in the world. In fact, we all know this. We know who Google is, right? Or we all know who Microsoft is. And we all know some of the bigger companies like Palo Alto here in the US. And these are global companies. Micron Electronics, 4, 5, or 6, 7, 8, 9, dozens of them are all run by Indian graduates from IIT. Pepsi Cola as well, who own the various franchises of Yum Industries. They were also run up to recently by an Indian and an ex-graduate of IIM in India. So they have a lot to offer the world, but more so the Caribbean and more specifically Trinidad. I'll tell you why. India has been able to develop indigenous technologies at a very low cost, which are world-class technologies. They have been able to find solutions in a number of key areas of development that can impact and can be very, very cost effective. I'll give you a simple example. The last Indian mission to the moon, whereby India was able to land a solar lander on the south pole of the moon, it cost us 68 million US dollars. That is perhaps so low cost that most movies made here in Hollywood cost more than that. There's a movie costing more than that, and they were able to successfully develop and land that, Leander mission called the Chandrayaan in the south pole of the moon. So again, this can be of tremendous benefit to Trinidad using low-cost technology, to find solutions to a lot of our problems. So I took in some of the speech today and I was greatly impressed. And some things are brewing, I will say. I see the guy in Twitter saying that this is going to lead to a disruption in classes and so on. I don't know where Mr. Lumpkin is or where his head is, but I know school is closing this week, actually tomorrow. And I don't know what sort of disruption in school will be occurring, because I know the last 2 or 3 days of the school year, classes are almost, there's no test or exams or
But
anything
Mr.
like
Singh, I wonder if he would have said the same thing if the Chinese president was coming to the country.
Or any other president for that
Or any
matter.
other president. But I have noticed the biasness, against the UNC in particular, in a more racial kind of connotation, like, and I mean, this is a very powerful economic nation. And I mean, today, after seeing the offers to Trinidad and Tobago, where Prime Minister Modi has offered us, I hope that some of these people swallow their tongue, because
Gary, if you don't like it, don't accept it. Simple like that.
Yeah,
If they
but
don't
that
accept,
they're trying. So these are the people that could cause the PNM to stay in government and suppress people, in such a terrible way that they're exposing themselves. They are showing their ugly head consistently. The fools are exposing themselves for what they are. And they are not acting in the best interest of the country. And I'm looking forward to this tutor man being removed from his position as quick as possible.
well, I would like him to remain there. I'll tell you the reason why. The government stated that they are going to, at least public servants and teachers, will going to be starting with a 10% salary increase. That's a starting point.
Yeah, but he's an
But
obstructionist,
this guy has accepted 4% under the PNM just before the election.
Right. So he's not getting any additional money. I hope not.
I really hope that they stick and get that 4%, while the rest of them enjoy and get that 10% minimum. So then teachers, who are supposed to be an educated segment of the population, let them see how they have been taken for a ride. So then some sense might prevail. So I want them, all these teachers, to get that 4%, seeing that nobody decided to say anything much against it. But they all accepted it because of this one guy folly. But let's get back to the point.
Yeah.
You know, last week for school, when the school is coming to a close of the school year, there's generally a playtime for the children, you know. Children go for outings, they
Yeah,
go
yeah.
and play
How much classwork are
sports.
you focusing on the last, or second to last, or last day of school? You know?
Yeah, today is the second to last day, and only after lunch, by the way. And then tomorrow they could just collect their report, and it's a, you know, the party scene by 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, all schools are, you know, finished. So I don't understand or can't understand if this guy, being a teacher all these years, who is representing tutor, if if he's not aware of these things. Remember the same thing. I think he's the same guy who talk about the crap about the laptop project.
Yeah, that's the same guy. That's the same guy. The same Kim guy.
Yeah,
But they
Lumpkin.
don't. These are the people, I'm telling you, that cause division in the country, and they will fuel division. For that's for their own gain.
Yeah, but again, what I'm saying is that he is the leader of tutor, which is the teachers union, and teachers supposed to be sensible, right? Teachers supposed to be sensible. We have entrusted teachers to teach the younger generation of Trinidadians all along. And if nobody is saying anything about it, what does that say? What does that say? That's why I'm telling you, I really hope they stick with their 4%, while the other public servants, they start with a minimum of 10%, just to show how stupid this guy is. Yes, so I really, really hope that. But I see the bag of goodies that is offered to Trinidadians across the board and Tobagonians as well, because it never said Trinidad. It always included Trinidad and Tobago.
And he knows quite about Dog Village and Sandy Grande, and he knows the place. It's not like he come there blindly. I
And
mean,
all
and he
about
knows about the cricketers. That well, obviously cricketers will be well known, but when you
because of,
start talking about local villages and stuff like that,
yeah, because of the IPL, Sunil Narayan and all these guys,
yeah, and then he
Nicholas
mentioned about
Pran.
AI and all this kind of stuff, and exactly the things that we were talking about, and that
Exactly.
India can do for us. And we've seen Prime Minister Modi offering us, and he has opened the door wide open in a time when America is shutting the doors on people. India has opened the doors wide open for us with all these opportunities. You know.
And, the world is going technology, the world has gone technology. And it will be a pity if we are just left behind, if we don't take up these offerings, or if we don't get ourselves acclimatized with the new technologies. What has happened recently over the past 50, 60 years is that every 20 years or so, there's what they call a technological shift. In the early 80s, for example, everything was in information systems, information this, information that, management information systems. 20 years later, saw the evolution of the internet, right? Everything went e-marketing, e-business, everything, e-hospitality, e-banking, meaning electronic, e-textbooks. You go to school anywhere here in the US, they give you the option of buying an e-textbook, which is a code, and you get your book delivered online, at minimal cost. So the whole world around the year 2000 went into that e-concept. Again, 20 years later, again, the whole shift is towards AI. So you see what is happening is that, long ago, before these things, anytime a new technology shift came on the scene, it was always like 50, 60, 70 years ago. Now it's happening every 20 years. And one wonders 20 years from now, by 2045, this might even cut down out to every 10 years. Because the speed at which these technologies are evolving is creating a massive disruption in the work environment, on how businesses are run and how people are managed, and the amount of people required to do the jobs now. Because you'll find that with the AI and technology shifts and the advent of robotics and so on, a lot of people will have to be retrained or will no longer have jobs. It's just that simple. You either retrain yourself to adapt to this new technology or be on the breadline and face unemployment. There are so many avenues which I heard him mention about, especially in technology and AI, in healthcare, in higher education, in sport, in energy, and you name it. And as I said before, India is a low-cost producer of high technology. They are a low-cost producer of high-end technology. And this is where the world has been going. And if we don't take up these offers, we may end up like a very, very behind the curve, always playing catch up and just trying to just, be average, when we can be leaders through innovation if given the right opportunities, and if our students don't avail themselves to the opportunities that's been offered. So we have mentioned these things before, Gary. I was very adamant that we set up a Ministry of Technology and AI. I finally saw that come into being, but more so to convert or expand the Davie campus into the MIT of the Caribbean, meaning the forefront in the field of technology and artificial intelligence, and use that as the top draw to attract students from all around the Caribbean, all even the USA, to come to Trinidad and get a world-class education. And I know India has a lot of highly skilled people in these areas.
I think it would be more cost effective to operate in the Caribbean also.
Oh yeah, and
In comparison to going to the United States,
well, there are
we have to break
restrictions.
away from going to the US, especially with how things are going here.
Yeah, and we can do the same degree and get a higher level of training over there back home than here for like 20 to 30% of the cost. Besides, our cost will be in local TT dollars. And when you can't get foreign exchange to pay your school fees here, or your tuition fees and your accommodation and your books and so on, will be a very, very viable option if we can turn that Davie campus into an AI and tech hub to attract. And mind you, that area can be a good area for tourism as well, because students come and they have to, if they're coming from the other parts of the Caribbean, other parts of the world to study, it's going to generate its own foreign exchange and be sustainable in the long run. Especially if we know that there's qualifications they're getting are highly ranked, like given a logo of MIT here in the US. So there's a lot of opportunities I think we can avail ourselves to. And it's a good thing that I mean, the offer was extended to us. So at least that breaking of the ice. Now by setting up the right teams and so on, we can explore the opportunities and make these things a reality for higher education in Trinidad and Tobago, especially. You know, the same can be said of healthcare and health services and pharmaceuticals. India is always known as the pharmaceutical center of the world. So,
Welcome, Dr. Rambo. Thank you for joining.
Hi
so
guys, hi guys.
hi, Doc.
Hi, good evening, good
So,
evening.
Doc, we saw all the goodies offered to Trinidad and Tobago by by Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, and these are some of the things that we were discussing here before that was even discussed. And
Yes.
I mean, the door is wide open. All the help, all the technological help, all the resources. He has opened the door wide open, invited us to come to India. I
Yeah.
mean, they. I know a few years ago, Gopio had made it possible for me to get that non-resident Indian status.
Yes,
In fact,
correct.
I think
Yes.
it came to a point where we could have gotten an Indian passport if we wished. But
Right.
I know I was trying to understand his accent a little bit, but I have to listen back to it. There's some kind of card or something he's offered us,
Right.
but
Yes,
he opened the door wide open for us. You
Right.
know,
Hmm.
so I mean, this is very good, especially where the United States is shutting the doors and on the way things are going here. And I mean, if the merger between India and Trinidad, we can really head in the direction that Suman was talking about. We're expanding that university up in David there and the technological platform there. To
Yeah.
build upon it.
I would definitely like to explore the forensic pathology training,
yes,
with a view of training some of our young doctors in forensic pathology, because I think that is something that we need to do for the wider Caribbean, and hopefully improve the forensic medicine, forensic and legal medicine approach to death investigation. Because I mean, look at what happened. Recently. They have all these deaths that are unsolved and cold cases that they're sitting there, and we're not getting any sort of. They when they go to fight the case, the prosecution don't have a good case because they messed up the crime scene, and they don't have proper DNA. With such a small country, all immigrants coming in should have DNA tested. You know what I mean? Is that since they don't have a say, they should just have mandatory DNA testing. Put them on a database and bring them in if you have to, but keep
Doc,
them.
I strongly believe that our police needs to be upgraded on their training,
Yeah,
as far as that
and
evidence thing is
I,
concerned. But I also
I
think
am,
there is some
I am
corruption
willing.
there
I
with
am
with
willing to do
destroying
that
evidence.
free. I have offered to do that free at the South Campus here. Bring the.
I
I will start it, and I'm just hoping that one day they will meet with me. It's
Doc, check your
free,
mic. You're coming in a little low. Okay, maybe come a little closer to the mic here.
no,
free.
that is the thing. I did an extensive research paper and I submitted it for the DB campus. Exactly
Yeah,
what the doctor is saying. We can use that for specific niche requirements for the country. At this time, the forensic and DNA training,
yeah,
technology and AI training. Of course, I know the Prime Minister wanted to do it as a law. Okay,
yeah,
do it. Listen, it's 100 acres of land there. There's a lot of space to do whatever you want to do, but have a pull. Why not make it the same, what I was saying, the MIT of the Caribbean,
yeah.
and bring the same Indian professors and teachers and so on. There are hundreds of
Yeah,
them in the
With the
there's
US.
support of the Indian government the commitment we have gotten here, I
yeah,
mean, this is really this is tools to run with. This is firepower. This is fuel to run with here.
Exactly the point. Exactly the point. Keep it hot on the burner and just set up your teams to start negotiations one time, and looking at an intake within the next year of
yeah,
students and get the teachers and draw up the plans and so on. And by being that, we will also establish ourselves as the Caribbean powerhouse in this cutting edge technology training.
Yeah.
You know, and
It's so
again,
easy. It's so easy. I have all my networks in University of Florida in the forensic medicine department there
yeah,
and
you have.
forensic pathology. They're just waiting to come down and help us to set up the labs and if we get the Indian government to help us, we can do the training in the South University campus here. And I mean, it's really a very great opportunity. I mean, it's amazing. It's thrilling. It's exciting.
I think, and to explore and take advantage of this deal, Doc, you see how it comes back to the same thing I was saying. I don't know if you recall at the beginning that we should have a couple of teams, specialized teams, that will be the big implementers. You all recall that
Yeah,
conversation?
we did. We did. And
Right?
I mean,
And
it's basic management and leadership skills. You just create your dashboard, find out the things that you definitely need to keep on top of. I'm not talking about outing the fires, and fighting PNM and letting them know what they did and what. I'm talking about actually developing your plan and
no,
executing your mandate and your plan that you have, right? Balance it in such a way that you don't just focus on one thing. Definitely crime, healthcare, two of the most important things, right? Your economy with terms of foreign exchange and getting back your US dollars inside this place, diversification of the economy. So you have your things that you're gonna have to do. And
the
of
balance
course,
of talk, exactly. So you just
set
can't
up your teams.
stagnate
Yeah,
yourself and doing cleanup,
yeah,
and the country's suffering for one, two, year one, year two, and year five. So you only have 2
correct.
years
Yeah.
to do what you have to do, which
Yeah, you said
is
it. I
insane.
remember you said that early on. Yeah.
Several times. Every time I go, I always make that distinction. Look, we don't have time.
Yeah.
We don't have time. Pick the low hanging fruits, move on, set up committees, set up teams who know what they're going. We know what the outcome is. We know what we want as an outcome or as an output. If you, well, Mike is, I think of technology, but it's outcomes it's looking at, right?
Yeah.
Patient outcomes in the case of health, and what are the necessary inputs and what is the necessary process you need to follow through to make sure. And you set up your metrics and your KPI to make sure that dovetails into your output, and you go with that. It's strategic planning and strategic management can get you there, But I don't know, boy. These people, first you need to have the vision where you want to go. And if you just having the vision and you don't know how to get there, it's just as bad as not knowing anything about it, how to achieve your strategic objectives. So I think we in business we call it the sweet spot. We will not always be in this position. So our goal now is to really take advantage of the offerings and hope that we can achieve what we have been mandated to do and what's been, written, and what our outcomes are or should be from the manifesto, UNC manifesto. So this is a tremendous, tremendous opportunity being offered to us. And if we don't seize this, or if we just, delay and let it linger on 2 years, 3 years pass, it just becomes a useless.
Yes, Mr. C. Ram,
Yeah,
welcome.
hi. Hi, good evening, everyone. Good
Thank
evening.
you,
I
thank
just
you.
Yeah,
came back from,
I think he just went and had all his Polari and thing, the big reception, grand reception they paid.
no, they gave a few snacks, but not caloric.
Right, right, right. Well, maybe got Indian snack, but and all them, South Indian dishes.
Yeah,
So we were just discussing all the wonderful things that Mr. Modi offered our people here in Trinidad and Tobago. I think it would be a boost for our economy and all our technology and education and everything in one package there. And he has opened the door wide open, and maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that since you were physically there.
Yes, I mean, he offered OCI. I mean, didn't expect that.
Explain
That's
to us
the
what is
overseas.
OCI. Explain to us what is
Yeah,
OCI.
this is my understanding. Overseas citizenship.
Right.
But he said
Uh,
for the sixth generation, right? I heard that, but I
yes,
don't know.
listen, that's major step, effectively making us like Indian citizens. I think that's fantastic.
But how many of us fall into that category? Sixth
This is
generation.
it comes all the way to our younger generation. So he's in the sixth generation. So
Yeah,
that
but
means not only our
not us.
grandfathers but us. They're talking about
No,
us.
it would mean
Yeah,
us.
When in the
I
sense that
don't think we have to. I don't think we have to go and prove six generations. I didn't get that feeling,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
because I think that something like that is already in place. What I now I think what they'll have to clarify for the mixed race, Douglas and so on as well. So it's a bit complicated, but they'll have to work it out. The point is that he has made an announcement, and we need to understand the details.
The
I think if you
clarity
have
on
any
it.
Indian lineage, the mixed race will be included also because if you have any lineage in Indian blood, you still have that privilege. I think.
Yes, I think that's a major step, quite frankly.
Yeah,
Quite
because
frankly.
I want to go back to Bangalore and thing and see what's new in this area because
But
when I
not only
went
that,
there,
our young people can have some opportunities there. You know.
big time, big time. But you know what? Is instead of we have
Sorry.
to send people there, bring a couple, five, six, a dozen professors in this higher education and technology field and get the DP campus going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We have to do that merger.
You
Yeah,
know,
I think that is where the main benefit. He was probably putting his arms around Trinidad and saying, "Come on, you're my you're my child. Let's take care of you. It's for us now to accept the embrace and to do things." Like I overheard what Sumant was saying, that we can't lose this opportunity. This is our last opportunity. Last
yes,
opportunity. If
and
Rahul Gandhi come into power, I,
God forbid,
But
we going
for now
nowhere.
for many years we felt neglected. So I mean,
yeah,
that we have closed the gaps on that. We built a bridge there. I mean,
there's a massive bridge. Yes.
he built us a super highway there.
Now, I
So
don't know if you all have been following Indian news, and do you know a lot of Americans, that is white Americans, going and settling in India now?
yes, yes, I follow the news. I've been
You
there,
follow.
follow all the whole thing. My wife is Indian from India, so I
Okay.
mean, I have been a couple of times. My cousin was the ambassador down there, and
No,
I
wonderful.
went there.
Wonderful.
So I have been with the, especially on the technology Indian Institute,
Mm.
IIT and IIM, and so
Yes,
on.
yes,
They were specialized institutions that you don't find anywhere in the world. The only part now, Singapore has been asking India for over 20 years build an institution like that in Singapore. So
yes,
I think they finally they allowed it to begin there, and also in Dubai. Dubai has also asked that an IIT be set up in Dubai for them because of the long-standing reputation that institution has. As I
yes,
was telling Gary just now, you know, there when Trump was there and Xi Jinping was there of China and Modi, they were all not discussing is the most powerful nation on earth. Like, that was the example.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
well, Trump said we had all his money, and China said we had all his technology, we way ahead. But Modi said, you just look at Google and you just look at Microsoft and see who is running these companies.
Yes, yes,
So then everybody just nod their heads. You guys are the ones who are the real powerhouses in the world. And not only Microsoft and Google, but things like PepsiCo, Micron Electronics, Palo Alto, all these big cybersecurity companies and so on are all run by Indians from IIT. So those who don't follow the news, who don't know about these things, we just say, okay, we're using Google, but who are the brains behind the technology?
Yes, yes.
And
Well,
what I was saying is that if we should bring the, some parts of this institution to Trinidad, and let's use the DP campus and make it the MIT of the Caribbean. And so by bring students from all over the world come on to Trinidad and study and get the same high quality, high technology and AI training in the Caribbean. That will boost the whole tourism landscape for us and generate the foreign exchange. And also, most importantly, position TNT as a leader, technological leader, and bring us back to that position we once held in the Caribbean. That
well,
is my goal.
no, well, you mentioning this and given your experience and knowledge, I could see it easily happening at a much lower cost than universities in England or Europe or anywhere else. So, I think the last time, some times ago, I think Kamala has to be reminded of these potentials, but get going on it. Get going. Get going.
And
So I think there's some low hanging fruits. There's some fruits that we need to develop feasibility studies and so on. So we categorize them accordingly. But the low hanging fruits should be done immediately. There's nothing to re-examine again. Sorry. No, and I think this is where when we spoke yesterday, they need to show successes of many things. I sent a message to Kirk Megho, he's the PR guy for UNC.
yeah,
I
yeah,
told him I told him to prepare the things that were accomplished within the first 100 days and advertise it. And you're correct. You all have making this point time and time again. It's a question of communication.
yes. PR,
Um,
you have to have that because you could be doing all the good work in the background there and nobody is aware what you're doing. What sense does that make? How can you get mileage, political mileage especially, out of
yes.
that? You do not communicate your set achievements and people not knowing what you are doing or what you're striving to achieve, you know. So again, it goes back to one of my. I don't know if you had joined the program at that time, but I postulated that we should have teams advising, like an implementation team or
No,
team
no.
of
I was there.
technocrats and
I
so
was
on.
there when we discussed it.
So
I was
now
there.
you see, if you have 20 or 30 persons on this team from various fields of study and specialization, now we can advise the government, say, hey, you know what? This offering Modi is offering for us on healthcare. Let's run with it. Let's, put the strategic plans in place, put the policies in place. Let resource the whatever resources we have to resource and get the thing going and let them provide that institutional help to make it a reality. As if we
Well,
do not do that, we're going to
mhm.
miss this opportunity. We don't have the foreign exchange to send our students and so on away for the global training.
No.
So this is an opportunity, albeit and maybe our last opportunity to let students or persons from Trinidad avail themselves to the latest technology, not only in tech and AI, but also in healthcare and education and sport and pharmaceuticals and all these different types of studies.
Well, I'm in a small group here. They asked me to come and we spoke and so on. And you're correct. The pharmaceuticals, we could set up a manufacturing because they said it costs little or nothing for tablets and so on, medicine in India, and it costs about 10 to 20 times in the Western world.
Yes, and not only that, the
So,
iPhone, an iPhone, when they break down the cost, it costs about $10 in China to make. It sells for 2,000 something dollars in the US here. Now they
well,
have changed for China. the Foxconn, which is the parent company that makes these parts, has shifted their operation from South Korea to India right now.
Well,
So you see, we can be or easily make Trinidad the headquarters in the Caribbean or the gateway to the South America and so on for a lot of consumable items, high price, high quality items.
mhm,
Using, as I was telling Gary, India is the only country perhaps to develop high technology with low cost inputs,
that's correct. That's correct.
high quality products. And I've given the example of the Chandrayaan mission, which cost
Mhm.
just about 68 million US dollars to build that rocket to send it to the moon successfully, as the first country ever to land in the south pole of the moon. And
Exactly.
comparing it here now to the US, where some Hollywood movies cost more than 68 million, most of them
Yes,
cost
yes.
around the 100 million mark. You know, so they have been successful to transform and use low price technology to achieve maximum results or maximum outcomes. So
But
again, we should avail ourselves. If we let the time pass or we dilly dally on these things, we don't seize the opportunities. Other countries, other islands will take the lead.
mm,
He just came from the previous country Modi visited before coming to Trinidad was Ghana.
yes,
I
yes,
think that Ghana allowed them one of their highest awards, national awards.
yes,
Yes,
yes.
but yet I see in Trinidad, I see people are questioning why should he get the highest, the order of Trinidad and Tobago and this thing and that thing. You
Well,
know, I
Kamala made it clear, because she said sorry, when we were in difficulty in COVID, Prime Minister Modi gave us the medicine, the injections, and the sort of free. He gave it to us. We never had to line up to get it. He never held us to ransom like the other large pharmaceutical companies and so on. So that alone, um, he deserve an award. That alone, and I think yesterday I mentioned as well. India heart is very very big. When they were taking off their citizens from
Iran,
Iran,
yeah,
yeah, they also brought out the Nepalis as well as the Sri Lankans. So they have been helping. I don't know if you remember, there was another situation in another country, and he offered to bring out Pakistanis as well. Pakistan abandoned them. So,
yeah.
India's heart is very big, and I think the world has recognized it, but they don't like it. They don't like it. That's why India has kept very close relations with Pakistan, not Pakistan, with
Russia,
Russia, as
mhm.
well as Israel. They're very close.
The
And
geopolitical,
nothing,
yeah,
nothing could break that bond. Nothing could break that bond. Israel helped them a lot in the Kargil war. Without
yeah,
Israel help, Pakistan would have overrun that area.
yes, yes, yes. We followed that to a T.
Now
Also,
there's I don't know if you all know, but there is a hill station up in the Himalayas where it's overrun by Israelis, by Jews,
yeah,
They
which
have
one
their
is that?
base. Yeah, in
Which
the
hill
Himalayas.
station? Which hill station?
It's in the valley. I could find out. Names just slip me these days, but
Okay,
I'll
okay.
find out
I
and send it. But
If we've
it,
been to
it,
Shimla
no, no, it was not Shimla. It's
or
in the valley.
Dharamshala,
No, 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 none of the regular hill station. It's a
okay,
valley station, really.
of a Jammu Kashmir area, or
No, 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 not Kashmir. It's Himachal Pradesh.
Okay, okay,
Himachal
okay.
Pradesh. But
Yeah,
it's a valley town.
Bali town, where?
Yeah, and the Jews, you'll see signs in whatever language, the Israeli language and so on.
Yeah, the
You see
Hebrew.
signs.
Yeah.
No, you
And
know, so they're very close, which I think, in spite of everything, all the conflict with the Muslim world and so on, he's held on with over 200 million Muslims in India. He's held on to that relationship.
yeah, well, remember, if you know the history, I think you should, you undoubtedly know the history. Jews, like the Pharisees and so on, were allowed to live freely in Mumbai and do their trading and so on. There was no
Yes,
discrimination
yes,
against these as minority groups. You know, there was no discrimination at all.
no, no,
Everybody
no, no,
all lived freely and so on.
no. They were welcome with open arms. The
Yep.
Parsis welcome with Tata and all these people are Parsis.
Pharisees, they have
Yeah,
merchants and all them. These
yeah.
people, you know, and
So
they had
when
funny names. You know, funny names. Last name is merchant. Last name is engineer.
yes,
These are
engineer.
Pharisees.
That's correct. That's
You know,
correct. That's correct. But they're
contractor,
very
contractor. You know, you see Indian
contractor.
names like
Yes,
contractor,
yes, yes.
Roy. Well,
You
Roy and these people are Bengalis, but
yes,
Roy's and
yeah,
the English names are you will think the Chatterjee and Mukherjee and all.
yeah. Those are
Padai.
Bengalis. Yeah,
Yeah, so
Bengalis.
the thing is that we can avail ourselves to the low cost, high tech areas because that is will be one of our priorities from the point of view we don't even have the foreign exchange. So this is a plus. That's a good starting point that we can get low cost, high tech technologies at a big discount.
No, well, they remember they could bring in investment as well. All we providing is the real estate and the buildings and so on. Many buildings we could convert. We could
Uh,
convert the whole presidential palace into some learning institution. We don't
yes,
need a president here.
and you see, this is the thing, and I am a little worried that if he missed the boat this time, the younger folks in Trinidad going to be where like any third, fourth, fifth world, you know, students or country again that with no opportunities, no nothing creative happening. You miss the boat on the whole technological, you know, landscape. As I was saying, long ago, every 50 years used to be a new transformative technology that's hitting the global world. But now that has dropped to 20 years. Every 20 years now is a
Mhm.
new technology coming on stream. I was giving the example in the 1980s was all about computers, management, information systems, and this was the study. I did that. I was the
Mhm.
cutting edge of it. Then come year 2000, I had to shift because everything was going to e-marketing, e-books, electronic government, the whole works, you know, e-business, everything, the whole e-concept shifted. So I now ended up having to shift again and
Mhm.
did my
Mhm.
training in the e-concept. And now 20 years later, again, now is all AI. Oh yeah, this is so these things happening instead of 50 years, it's happening every 20 years. So by 2050 or 2045, who knows, it might be dropped down to every 5 years, there's a whole new technology coming in again.
Well, AI is changing the world. I don't know. I think last time I saw, and I may have mentioned it, Elon Musk has set up a factory every 40 seconds. He's producing a car. You know,
Oh yeah, well, that is
amazing,
that's
amazing.
it,
But
it's
you're right.
it's
But what has to happen? Let's look at the facts, right? Most of the politicians are old school, very old school, right? Times have changed dramatically, and whether they have the capacity to change, they will have to change if things start to crumble. What has to happen is people like yourselves and Gary, um, is that we want the government to succeed. We want the government to succeed. It's easy to submit proposals and nobody answer and this, that, and to get disgruntled. So we have to go through people like yourself and myself. I determine I to keep pounding the pavement on it. Is that if we have ideas that could bring about major changes to Trinidad and Tobago via the government, we cannot be frustrated and walk away. We have to keep pounding at it. Things have been working for the last 10 years. I'm not stopping, just not stopping. Um, so I'm not going to be disgruntled if they don't respond to me immediately. I sent out, I shared with Gary what I sent to the Prime Minister. I don't know if she got it. I don't know if she read it. But I sent it out, the similar letter. I sent it out to the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Planning, and Minister of Trade, and so on. I sent it out to them. So I'm going to follow up. They need to read it because they have to now learn to recognize, and this is one of the great virtues of a great leader, is to know who to trust and who not to trust, who to listen to, etc. So whilst I'm not in the inner circle, I don't know if you all are, but
No,
at
no.
the end of the day, no, but you all would have worked with them closely before. I helped with the 2015, but they have to realize that people mean well. One of the problems with politicians is that they believe if you contacted them, you always want something.
Yeah, yeah,
You always want something.
quite true.
And then if you come with a good idea, they're quick to say, what's in it for me? Those are the two things. And we have to break that. There's nothing in it for you, and I don't want anything. If you pay me for the work I do and the benefit I bring, that's a different matter. But let us get on with the work. Let us get on with the work. And you're correct. If you miss this opportunity with India, I think this 5 years will pass so fast, and there could be riots in between because you have to deliver. You promised too many things. You have to deliver. And I've been begging them. I've been begging them and the previous government.
I think we lost weight a little
You
bit
all
there.
put forth a plan of action for everything. Put forth a plan of action and get going with it. Get going with it. I
You
have
see,
good contacts with the Minister of Trade. So if they're going wrong, I won't have any hesi- hesitation to tell him to be careful. Be careful. Don't do this. Don't do that. I already had a meeting, and I told him be careful with these manufacturers. All they're doing, they're exporting subsidies. That's what they're
yes,
doing.
correct. Using our subsidies, hard-earned
Yes,
monies, foreign exchange to export it.
and they're not bringing it back.
No, they're exporting it, and what they're
Yeah,
doing, they basically, in a nutshell, they perform the role as a wholesaler, seller, making the money, sending it back away, bring back things, goods and services to sell, make the money, and re-exporting it. So they're doing business out of this.
they're doing business out of it. Now, if that same scarce foreign exchange is invested in capital investments in Trinidad to
Yep.
produce things, look at raw materials, make raw materials, etc., etc. Then we have a very different Trinidad and Tobago. Then we are truly diversifying.
Yes.
So
So
I
someone
mean,
sent me on Facebook, Marcy is selling a breadfruit for $103. One
yeah,
hundred.
I found out about it. Okay,
They
it's
sent me yesterday. I told them, well, look, in Miami, North Miami Beach here, I get it for $3.50.
what they did was
I see yellow breadfruit too. So I
let
don't know.
me,
It's cheaper here.
no, let me clarify that. It's cooked and it's filled in with saltfish and all kinds of exotic things.
No,
So, but
but it's
still,
still
it
on.
can't cost $100.
No. This is the one of the skin and the price tag on it,
Yeah,
Marcy.
yeah, it has skin on it. It has skin
Yeah.
on it. So they present it as if it's a fresh bread food, but
Yes.
there's a lot of things
Yes.
happening inside. So
Yes.
But still, compared to $3 and $10 to $100, I don't know who's buying that.
You know, so these are the things where these are the opportunities we can avail ourselves, or things, especially in agriculture as well, agriculture, agro processing, flood mitigation, and all these things. Nobody is as skilled as them because they go through this seasonally and they have their plans and so on, how they're dealing with this in a massive scale.
But
You know,
let me explain the flooding. If you look at Florida, there's a flood prone area.
yeah, we
But
don't
what
see
they
that.
did, they dug out beautiful lakes and they build the side banks, they build houses there, and they have a lake. So
All
if you
developments
look,
here, all developments have lakes there, and they use it for a number of purposes:
right,
recreation, sport, relaxation, fishing, paddling, boating, all these things like normal, regular, entertaining activities in your social life, taking a nice walk in the park, building it out as an attraction.
well, South Trinidad is very undulating.
Yeah.
So we still suffer from,
We had
um,
that discussion with Dr. Ramup had made that point here also with those things, how we would, what would we do, things like that. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
yes, so South Trinidad, on my estate, which I have 40, 50 acres, is very undulating in that area, Princestown area. And I was able to dig out two lakes and I have water throughout the year. So, these are simple things that can be done. So, farmers do not have to go in the flood prone area like Aranguez and maybe flatland and Barrackpore and so on. They can use the undulating lands and you have water throughout the year and you don't have floods. You do not have floods. But we have all that land wasted. If you travel in South Trinidad, all the lands are wasted.
It's,
Simple,
it's
simple things to relocate people, build houses for them, small houses, or give them a plot. You give them a plot, and they build their house very quickly.
exactly.
I don't know if you remember when Mr. Pandey was there on the Humphrey. They started off the Sutu lands.
Yes, in
That
Tobago,
was
that was a
brilliant.
big hit. That was a big hit in Tobago. At least in
Yeah,
Hill, when I went there to work, it was $5 a square foot for
right.
prime land, you know. And now a lot there is over 500,000 for a lot there.
Right.
In,
So, say for example, years ago, I realized that we have a lot of ribbon settlement. So persons will buy the lot in front, and in the back is owned by the government. We can now locate all these lots for potential sale and tell the same person who now have 4 and 5 children, we could sell them the back lot at a fair price. They'll be glad to buy it because they don't have to now go and pay for water connections and so on again. So we have to be creative and live within our means, and that could bring in, I suspect, well, still hundreds of millions of billions of dollars for the government.
you see, and I'm a bit skeptical of these ministers. Either they don't know, and I think they should be advised properly, or they, like the rest of politicians, what's in it for me? So they'll not take no initiative to go with sound, good ideas to, make this space better than it was before. So that's my gut feeling. There is a lot of cleaning up to do. I'm aware of that, but if you spend your time cleaning up with the amount of mess to clean up there, you will spend your 5 years just cleaning up mess.
No, but how I look at it is to start to implement some good projects, and the
Yes,
cleanup will automatically take place.
correct.
Don't
So it
fo-
has to
don't
be
focus
done.
on cleanup, and Dr. Marad said that as well. Although there are certain things to be pursued on a much larger scale, but don't worry about cleaning up. Put people back to work. Give them Give them protection, local industry, some form of protection against imports. All countries do that.
Yes,
Agriculture and get agro processing. Be very very aggressive with agro processing.
correct. Yeah, implement some import substitution,
Yes,
you know,
yes. And import
initiatives and
import cheap cars now. I mean, look, I think it was Tata or Mahindra. They are building out today as we speak a 5,000 US dollar EV. Five
yeah,
thousand US dollar.
yeah,
They
yeah.
said it. They said it's revolutionary. It's revolutionary with the battery revolution in terms of development and so on. So we have to seek out the best suppliers. I'm asking the question here. Here, what I'm asking. Do you know Toyota? At least the news that I'm seeing. Even Chevrolet and they coming out with pickup
What?
less than 15,000 US. I don't know if that's available in the states now.
No, they have revolutionized the engines,
Right.
and because of that, the capacity, the consumption capacity for gasoline is no
Oh,
longer
it's no longer higher.
required. Like Toyota has invented the hydrogen car working, emission is only water vapor. Same thing, a
Yes.
couple of German companies as well have done that, you know.
Hmm.
So ag- everything ties back to technology.
Yes.
And that's what I
Yes.
say. If Trinidad can be the technology center, the MIT of the Caribbean, at least for South American students, Latin America, even American and European students, African students, Indians, all
Hmm.
over the world. And the cost of doing it is much, much cheaper than here in the US.
Yes. Yes.
You
Yes.
know, that will alleviate one of us having to beg for foreign exchange, but two, and most importantly, it will provide our students the opportunity to get the high quality education back home for
Hmm. Hmm.
20% of the cost.
Yes. Yes. But you know,
So
Antigua, Dominica, probably
St.
Saint
Kitts,
Lucia to
St.
some.
Kitts,
Saint
St.
Kitts, they depend on
right
that.
now, yes, they are converting now. It's no longer tourism, it is educational tourism.
But what
Educational tourism.
what they did was a high risk business model when they depending on selling the um, citizenship by invitation.
Yes,
So I
yes.
mean, I always found that very very high risk because Trump wants to take it away. In fact, he's imposing certain sanctions and so on that
No,
because the,
a lot of countries like Costa Rica and so on have always done that. Portugal, Spain, they are the leaders in selling citizenship because they realize that what these countries, Portugal, especially Spain, Costa Rica, they are blessed with nice climates throughout the year. And once you have that and close proximity to, Europe, here, Costa Rica, here with the US and so on, for emergency things like operations and healthcare and this type of thing. So that a lot of US people go and retire in Costa Rica now because the Medicare and medical insurance are covered there.
yeah yeah
So
Sumit, on unlike the Caribbean, people will just invest in it to get a passport. There's a
yeah,
big difference. Big
I
difference.
yes, I'm aware that will be an avenue as well because you could plug these things,
Yeah.
you can plug these things, but create the opportunities to get people in the country. Like, how come St. Kitts and their GDP ratio has jumped way beyond Trinidad and Tobago?
Hmm.
Because the medical tourism, they have seen the success of this thing in Grenada,
Yes. Yes.
the St. George's College there, the
Yes.
offshore medical
Hmm.
school which they run
Hmm.
in that place there, the 7 Mile Beach in Grenada. Yeah,
Yeah, Grenada depends on that a lot.
big
And
time. And
even
foreign
little Even little Dominica as well. They
Yes,
established two schools.
yes, Dominica as well, and St. Kitts now big time because
Mhm.
St. Kitts when they landed the airport, there's only one hotel they have, the Marriott right there. That's it. Nothing else in St. Kitts. I know I used to sign a contract for the airline still flying to the Caribbean from Europe.
There's an old one
Martinique,
in the middle of town. There's an old one.
Martinique and British Airways. I signed the contract with Virgin Atlantic and we share that trip with, we meaning Tobago. I was the director of tourism in Tobago. So we all sharing that trip from London to St. Kitts to Tobago, you know. So we, it's a process, a mathematical process. You use formula you use to work it out. But we were still able at all of that to get two Virgin Atlantic 747 to fly into Tobago twice a week. So that was great.
Mhm. Mhm.
But then, you know, I after meeting the head of Virgin um, Virgin Atlantic, what's his name? Branson,
Yes,
Mr.
Branson.
Branson. Yeah, he said, "Well, Mr. Singh, you know what?
Richard Branson. Richard
Yeah,
Branson.
yeah." So Richard Branson, I actually had lunch with a guy in Kensington Court. He has a big 11-story building and he has massive trees, like 30, 40 feet growing on the 11th floor of his
Huh.
building.
Uh-huh.
You know, I went to his grapes garden up in Kensington, there upstairs. And that is beside the point. What he was telling me, he was saying, look, we can get a lot of high-end people to come to Tobago and stay, right? But we don't have five-star hotels in the island. So when I can fill my first class section on this 747, that is 45 seats,
Mhm.
right? These are 45 high paying people and they want top of the line accommodation. And when you don't have even 4 stars, you don't know, you mostly have to be a 3.5 to 3.5 stars at
Mhm.
best. But these people want 5-star hotels.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if you don't have that, then they're going to go somewhere else. He
Well,
said
you know.
all his trips to the Caribbean, but on the high end thing, so he cannot fill my high end section in the first class because I don't have the facility to accommodate these guests. And we've been pushing that all on for years. I've been trying to tell them, look, upgrade this damn thing, man. Build out at least 800 high end rooms, 5-star rooms, and another 600 4-star rooms, and so on. So you capture the market. Whoever comes will find a suitable accommodation on
Mhm.
their range, or the affordability range, and so on. But no, but
But we
it's
have to deal with that. We have to deal with that landing strip too. It has to be shifted.
well, that's one of the reasons they're not flying as regular. They're taking a chance because
But
you
but
don't want to
don't you
send.
think, Sumit, if the government opens it up? So, sorry, go ahead, Gary. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, me and Sumanda, Sumanda had informed me that the issue when I asked why we couldn't have direct flights there, and he had informed me that the landing strip was too close to the fence line. You needed 200 feet, and we had 10 feet, there. So this is something that's highly critical because it's very risky there. So Suman can, elaborate more on that. But I'm just saying that the fact that they built that landing strip without consultation in any sense, typical PNM. So we
Mhm.
have to go. We have to shift the landing strip now more closer to the ocean side because we have buildings on the other side. And I don't. I mean, there's other. We might have to build another landing strip because most of Tobago, far as I see, is empty. It's forested. What is it? 15% of Tobago is occupied with civilization. Most.
Let me give a good example, Gary. There's a Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad, India, that the entire Tobago population can fit in that stadium 2 times.
Right.
The
So, what?
capacity of the stadium is 120,000 people, and Tobago has 60,000 people.
Right. So it's two things we have to look in. Right now, we have to expand that. Far as I see, that landing strip and shift it towards the more towards the sea. The second thing is that we should look into those empty land space that we have there and build something that is more accommodating so that we can have those direct flights. And there's a lot of room for the five-star hotels to be built. But the condition has to be, far as I'm concerned, the government of Trinidad and Tobago not supposed to build any hotel for you. You get the permission to build the hotel, you run your hotel, and that is how it's supposed to be. I don't see that we should have to pay to build a hotel like the nonsense that was going on with the previous investment there.
All right, let me give a little rundown on that. The the airport in Tobago, it had a 50% overrun in it from 1 billion to 1.45 billion, 450 million overrun in the cost. And the project managers, UDCOT, well, of course, the Rowley's guy, who is the president of UDCOT at that time, George, his attorney, they say that they will get all approvals for that airport by July. But they stick the government with it because nobody in Tobago was consulted. THA was not consulted in any of that project or any aspect of that project. It was just somebody just come from Trinidad. We're going to build our airport there. That's it.
But
No
I mean, the people that built this thing was so damn stupid. At the same time, they don't know that you can't. What happened to the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago? They didn't know that you can't build a landing strip so close to fence line and towards the road.
Now, if you go in if you fly in any international,
They're so damn dunce.
Any international airport, there's what's called a perimeter roadway around that airport. On the outside, there's a perimeter roadway, a perimeter fence, and a perimeter roadway. And international regulations state that you must have a minimum of 250 feet from the perimeter roadway. In Tobago's case, the perimeter roadways is that Strawberry local road, which has houses on either side of it. So you come to your own conclusion.
Yeah, but so Sumit, those are not recent regulations.
But if you just go and look at any international airport,
No, I'm just supporting Gary's point. These are not new regulations.
Correct.
How could they be so stupid not to have known that?
Right, and they boasted about it. We'll get all approvals by July this year. Because when they came to this soft opening they had just before the election, March.
Yes.
They had this soft opening. Whatever that was, that is just a shell. That is just a shell.
But these are massive mistakes. And at the end of the day, the taxpayers have to fund all of this.
Yeah, who gets punished
None
for all these
mistakes,
things?
Mr. Ram. High class stupidity.
Are trying to be kind on this.
That is not a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, this is it's sad, and as far as I could see, something like this, somebody should be accountable.
Somebody I know that is a $450 million cost overrun already.
Huh.
So now, if you have to go and realign this thing now to make sure you meet the minimum requirements of an international airport, you're talking the next set of monies.
Yes.
You may have to shift the runway itself.
But
Virgin Atlantic,
the runway is fine. The government
runway is fine. There's no problem with the existing runway. But Virgin Atlantic, and they're telling you that they're not going to, come to Tobago and let their plane or their passengers suffer any sort of ill effects from that. So,
but is the perimeter road difficult to expand or something? I don't know.
Perimeter road people build their houses on the back of the wall.
Well, it's probably cheaper to buy them out, and there are laws in place to do so.
Hear what? They've been same. Unicut was trying to buy them out. And,
And
and Minister Imber said, well, they saved 45 million in that project of not buying them out, of not buying them out. So
so,
his
so,
analogy was that they save money on this aspect.
so, let me give you a story. Let me give you a story. There are two friends, right? One of them a smoker. One of them a smoker. So they advance in age now. So the other friend tell the guy, he say, if you stop smoking or if you didn't smoke, you'd have save a lot of money. So the guy who's smoking, he says, show me the money you saved. Show me the money you saved. So this foolishness about donkey logic on these things. So because you didn't do something,
Exactly.
you say
Donkey logic.
if you
PNM
save
donkey
it,
logic.
if you save it, show me which account you have it in.
Yes.
And he was don't forget he's Minister of Finance,
Yes, but we remember that project already has 50% cost overruns.
Yes,
And I think
yes,
that the especially PNM government, they always pull that one on the people. They deliberately screw up on the project, and to correct it now, you have to change the scope. Every
yes.
time you change the scope of a project, you change the
It's
cost, and
very
like
expensive.
we go along like with that notion all along they go and they get away with that because airport is it's like a necessity, especially in the case of Tobago and the international airport to to drive the tourism product there, or to drive the, let's say, more hotels, more five-star, four-star hotels have to come in the island. You need an international airport, and if that is not being developed concurrently to the standards which is required, what happens? What happens?
You see, for Tobago has been a big drain on Trinidad. Every year they get about $4 billion every year, every year.
That's because the government failed to market Tobago. That's what they failed to do.
That's one of the reasons, Gary. But see what happens. I'll tell you the problem in Tobago. I was Tobago's first economist, and I can tell you that what happened in Tobago is that the state, the THA, employs about 60% of the eligible workers in Tobago. And with that top heavy labor, right, you can control the show, meaning you can control who wins election and who doesn't win election. PNM lost this thing despite having 60% of the Tobago population in their workforce. And they still lost the election 40-1 in
Mhm.
Tobago. So think about that for a while and see that when you're controlling 60%, people have no choice but to vote back for you because they're scared of losing their jobs. It's like a CPAP story now. Think of it as a CPAP story, and then you'll realize what happens. If you don't vote for us, what happens to your job?
No, but Sumit, let's look at the problems, right? They're getting over $4 billion to spend.
Yeah.
And that
Yes,
does not that in when I say that includes what Wasan they spend as well, because directly they'll get about $2.73 billion plus additional, right? So $4 billion. So how I look at it is that the other constituents, let's say Caroni South, Kuva South, Kuva North, and so on, these fellows were getting 500 million
yes,
with a much larger population. So I
yes.
am saying, I keep telling you, and see, make that as an issue. You see, we are so scared. They'll say racist and all that, but we have to cut through all of that and look at the facts.
We have to
And then
correct the you have to correct
Tobago,
the economy. Correct the economy, and this is the who say racism. This thing that is the problem. You were elected to correct Trinidad and Tobago.
that is exactly so.
Right.
Now UNC raised the issue, but they didn't bring up Tobago in the mix. what they said was like Port of Spain getting so much more, Diego Martin getting so much more, and so on. But that is yes, that is true. But the real issue is Tobago, and that is why THA is able to. The last which I counted, it was 70% of the working force that that they engage, 70%, and that's why I'm saying when you look, because this question was asked in Parliament. So they asked Tobago, okay, you're spending 4 billion for the year. How much revenues you're contributing? It was between 200,000 and 300 million ET dollars. So
Yes,
they
that,
they are
that's one side of the argument, but you have to understand that more than 90% or 95% is recurrent expenditure to pay salaries and wages. So there's no development going on or can occur in the island.
no, because that development cost
Then,
is put on the shoulders of Trinidad, the central
right.
government.
And they're using the per head of population as the criteria because they say based on the criteria, they have 60,000 persons now. They're supposed to get 5.9% to 6.1% of the national pie.
Right, but let me go further. Let me go further. So, what percentage of 660,000 is of 1.4 million? Right,
Correct?
1%, 10% is 140,
What is that? Yeah.
10% is 140, 5% is 70. So that is how they're working it out.
Yeah, there's like that, about 5%. But they're projecting that some Tobago, that 60,000 is really closer to 70,000 because it have about a lot of, Trinidad has more Tobagonians than Tobago. You know that, right?
Yeah, I suspect that
No,
we
no, that,
probably will have, just now we'll
oh,
have more Venezuelans than Venezuela as
no,
well.
Trinidad has more Tobagonians.
Tobagonians.
I think.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So
Yes.
the
Yes.
actual figure is closer to 80,000
Yes.
really.
Yes. Okay.
So
Okay.
80,000 out of 140 will bring it to 6%.
All right. So
Right?
so to me, let's apply that same ratio. We'll
Hmm.
apply that same ratio to Cuba South. What's
Right.
going to happen? What's going to happen?
That's one problem. That I see it like that. But now they're saying, and they justify to some extent that most of the oil platforms and drilling wells and so on are currently in Tobago waters, and they have not resolved that issue as yet. Is it what is Trinidad? What is Tobago? What is Trinidad and Tobago? So there are three things they have to solve, three problems. What is the exclusive economic zone for Trinidad? They say that is
Right.
200-mile limit. If you use that concept, right, that UN concept, it will
Yeah.
include Tobago and go all around Tobago, right? For the 200-mile east, your eastern boundary in this case, not the western boundary. The western boundary has to be divided half and half between Venezuela and Trinidad. Now, but on the eastern and northern boundaries, it has to, since it is the unitary state of Trinidad and Tobago, does Trinidad own all these platforms, which is in Tobago waters, or does Tobago own it there? Now, that is a question that has to be answered.
But wouldn't
And
there be law? Wouldn't there be precedents to solve that problem? I'm sure there is.
no, they using the president of St. Kitts Nevis.
Yeah.
Of Wales and United Kingdom. But all these things have their own, what should I say, their own little differences and so on. But basically, what is Tobago and what is Trinidad? What are the boundaries of Tobago and what are the boundaries of Trinidad? This is what they are trying to say, that, hey, in Tobago waters, we have a fair amount of drilling platforms and a lot of the natural resources coming out of Tobago waters. So it's justifiable that we should get a higher proportion of it.
Right. So let's use that same argument now for
Mhm.
Labre or let's say Maruga. How you see, whatever argument they use there, the constituents in Trinidad could use as well.
Correct,
I
correct.
mean,
I
you
agree
look,
with that.
To be honest, you know, I find that we have been carrying Tobago. Tobago has not been contributing in central. The central treasury. Okay, they are saying that look, a lot of that oil belong to us. And my view is, let those 2 seats go. Let those 2 seats go, and we have an arbitrator and draw the line in the sea and let them go and develop. We already waste our oil resources. We virtually have nothing to show except debt. Let them go on their own and chart their own course. That's my view on it, because they keep saying that Trinidad is a hamstring upon their freedom, etc., etc., etc. And quite
Well,
frankly, that would be my suggestion.
well, it's not everybody. I'm sure the centers, radicalists, and so on. That is their thinking, and they try to influence people and so on like that. But I don't know. I don't think there's any clear solution to it, because right now the number one problem with Tobago is the autonomy bill, for them to pass their own laws and make their own laws and pass their own laws and things. Now that is important because the Tobago has what's called um, Schedule 5. Now, Schedule 5 says, the articles in Schedule 5 says that the government of Trinidad and Tobago have passed along these things for you, the Tobago House of Assembly, to have total control of these things like education and healthcare, blah, 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 roadworks and so on. But they have not officially and legally handed over these things to the THA. So the issues remain like the technology, and issues remaining like national security, for example, remains at the hands of Trinis. Excuse me a minute.
Yeah, yeah. I think Gary, hello. Hi, Stephen, you're there?
Yes, yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You have any contribution on
I'm
that?
back.
Well, I'm
with,
listening because
with Tobago, I
when the
mean,
economist speaks, you have to listen sometimes.
no, I'm
No,
mostly finance. I learned economics about economics over the last 10 years
well,
because
I've held 4 different portfolios there in Tobago as senior project analyst, director of tourism, director of IT, and so on. So at different times. So I
so
know the landscape very, very
no, no,
well
but
inside out.
you have declared your bias. I'll understand that. So
Right. And Dr.
so
Ram will
listen, I like Tobago.
I I
I
sat
like Tobago.
I sat I sat on the airport authority
Airports
board.
Authority. You're the board. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
I was there for like about what 6 or 7 years, and when the conversation came up about the airport just now, I remember that although we used to go through the transport secretary of the THA, um, the thing about it is that the airport board, when you talked about who is responsible, would be the responsible authority for that nonsense, because we used to go to these conferences and these subject matter with our technocrats, and we would sit there as the policymakers, and we went to small airports and ICAO standards. In my time, we had to get the ICAO standard assessment for us to become an airport of some note, because we still in Trinidad didn't even reach the stage at the time when I was on the board. So, I mean, clearly there's some nonsense there that has to be sorted out. I think those things are criminal acts. We talked about yesterday. There are
Hmm.
certain things
Hmm. Hmm.
bordering on criminal activity. It's amazing how that could happen. And it comes out like putting square pegs in wrong holes. One of the conversations we had yesterday and today, just now, I think, Mr. Simmons, you were talking about it is Mr. Siri, I'm sorry. We
Yeah.
were talking about it is that the question on of which I think is something very very dear to me, because it's about this community resiliency. and the dependency syndrome on when we take government. I remember during the People's Partnership, we went to clean up Diego Martin. And
Mhm.
when we were cleaning, the military people, the defense force came to help us, and we had some European CPEP people come, and whilst we were cleaning the homes, the people who were in the homes were sitting down playing cards.
Mhm.
Um, and I know I looked at that and I said to myself, we were giving out mattresses willy nilly and houses, and I'm hoping that we don't get into that nonsense again, because yeah, we're doing a lot of cleaning, yeah, but when we look at the science, we look at the what is really behind the community resiliency. I remember speaking to Botiwari, and he said, Doc, you should stop talking about resiliency, talk more about fragility, because you could measure fragility more than resiliency. It's easier to measure fragility than resiliency. It was a very philosophical and very technical conversation with Mr. Tiwari, with Dr. Tiwari. But it was indeed what we will have a problem with when we keep giving and not developing. And I think part of that is the way our politics is really molded in or it has developed over years in terms of the partisan politics, where things like CPEP, instead of trying to create a community that is resilient and give them tools that they could then see about themselves, they depend on some money at the end of the week, and that money is finished when, by the weekend it's finished, for whatever reason, and they look for the other week, and then when their party loses, obviously the other party will have their people, and we keep on doing that and cleaning the roads and painting the stones, and then next week we have to go back and cut
Mhm.
the grass during the crop time.
Yeah.
It takes longer to, maybe 2 weeks to come back, but during the season, every week you're cutting the same grass.
Mhm.
Whereas,
Mhm.
you all know that in North America, in Europe, the crews will come first and fix the roads, remove the stone, remove the boulders, and then the farmers will pass. Remember, the farmers, we used to call them farmers, the tractors used to pass and cut the grass, and it is a faster job, but the manpower will remove the rubble and the stone. So what I'm saying is that if we don't, and we don't have much time, as we keep saying, if we don't start removing this dependency syndrome, we'll be cleaning and we're giving gifts and we're giving hampers and pampers, but we have to make sure that the people who is actually living in those communities begin to also do their part in terms of mitigation of flooding and all this sort of thing.
But
So
Doc, you need municipal restructure there, right?
sorry, say that again.
You need municipal reconstruction. Yeah, the whole thing has to be restructured because
Right.
the
I
way it
mean,
is
I
right now, it's a
I had
dependency
sent
structure.
I sent Jolene, and also I sent this boy, from housing. What's his name again? The minister of housing. What's his name?
David Lee,
David.
David
Right.
Lee.
Yeah. I had sent them an email recently, and I told them one of the things that we have to do, and it comes out of the Latin American story, is that a certain percentage of your budget for housing has to go to what is called retrofitting. And I said that retrofitting is a very important component of a housing budget, because when we are talking about low cost development of structure, well, resiliency, one part of that is structure, right? And housing and shelter. And if you begin to look at your high risk areas and you begin to use your retrofitting, right, budget, you'll see that some of the existing homes can be retrofitted at lower costs, in terms of accommodating, right? If the dogma of water all over the world, the science of water is you live with your water, you try not to block the water. That's the science. We have learned
Mhm.
that over many years, and communities actually thrive in rivers. I know you guys have traveled in the east, and you know that there are certain communities that live in rivers. And whenever there is a typhoon or anything coming, there's this siren, and they all go on these boats on the mainland, and then when everything finishes, they come back, wash up their homes, and they go back again on the water. So the thing about it is resiliency is very important, and for so many years in Trinidad, I'm 63 now, and I mean when I became a doctor, I was about 20 something, and when you look at some of your communities flooding and people building flats in the flooded areas and whatever, it has been the same thing over and over and over and over again. I mean, over 40 years of my life, it's actually the same thing, right? I remember when my good friend Mongru was in self help. I kept telling Mongru, I said, yeah, you're all going to be raising money to help these houses to put back the roofs, but instead of just giving them money to put back the roofs, you also have to retrofit them, put in the hurricane straps and all this sort of thing, so that when the storm comes next year and the heavy winds and the same roof blows back again, the same mattress goes down in the rain, you replace it with another mattress and another roof. You understand? Because you're not putting in the hurricane straps, so you're not letting the people build their houses higher or on stilts, so etc. etc. You know what I mean? So if we keep doing this over and over and over and over, we wouldn't learn. We'll change government in 5 years. Another government
Yeah.
will come and do the
Um,
same thing, dependency syndrome,
Gentlemen,
and then another
could I
5 years
take
will come.
leave? Could I take leave? My wife from
Sure.
Edmonton, she's calling me a few times, so
Oh, yeah.
let me
Okay.
answer her
So
before she stop calling.
yeah. So sorry about that.
Okay,
Thanks
take
very
care.
much.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
I just let you all know. Thanks so
Yeah.
much and good night.
Okay, guys. Take care.
Take care.
Take care of it. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Singh. So you understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
It's
yes.
one of the things that we have to be careful of this time, so that what we have is that our money is better spent, if you know what I mean, and that we develop more resiliency in our communities, so that people are able to adapt more. They are more trained to mitigate, and the government also begin to assist in retrofitting some of their homes, so that instead of just giving them money, through social grants and agriculture grants and whatever, we begin to save some money. I mean, we have to be thrifty now, right? You understand what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be structural changes. It can't be same old, and repeating the same mistake year in and
Yeah.
year out, and nothing tangible
Because
comes.
it's gonna flood again. I mean, whether we like it or not, next year or later this year, we're gonna have floods in the same area that had floods before. Even if we clean the areas, it's just gonna be less impact, but it's gonna flood.
Yeah,
So the thing about it, if you build your house next to a river, the river continues to do its work whether you're there or not. The river has an upper course, middle. We all learned that in geography. The
yeah,
river is
yeah,
not going to change, right? That's how the big deltas were developed. That's how we have all these communities that are thriving on the coastal areas and in the Nile Delta and all of these. I mean, you're talking about geography at its best. So
But there has to be a complete municipal restructuring, local government reform that they're preaching about. What kind of reform are they talking about? There has to be, I mean, a lot of things has to be put in place before we can get to that point.
yeah, I think what it is basically is that it's a one thing. First of all, you have to clean, and I mean, I'm so happy that the minister of local government, I mean, she is on point. You know what I mean? And she's getting the support from Jolene and the other ministers. So I am happy that if you have like a dashboard or a pie chart, right? Just on rough estimates based on the science and disaster risk reduction in Trinidad and Tobago when it comes to a high risk, right? Or let me say high frequency, low risk, right? Problem like flooding. I think that's about 40% of your scorecard, 40% of your dashboard, right? The other 60% is what we're talking about, Gary. You have to now look at your mitigation programs. Yeah, you have to look at your policy in terms of development, right? Your hillside policy, right? Your building codes, right?
Right? You can't be
Your
building flat houses in low-lying areas.
That's what I'm saying. So your community. The other thing now is your people thing. Now you see all of these are okay, but you see there's a there's a people. Remember, we are the ministry of the people, right? But what we really have to do now is to focus on our people, and I think this to me has is a big part of the pie chart. And this is something that we have never, whether it's a PNM government, a UNC, NAR, or even a People's Partnership, we have in People's Partnership, I think they went down the road of too much dependency, so that people they just give, they just keep giving, and I think we had to be something we have to be a little careful. We could give, but we have to now begin to let people fish for themselves rather than keep giving them the fish, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So that is what I think as part of your economic change or your development as we go forward. Trinidad and Tobago needs to Tobago, and we talked about Tobago. I mean, that's the big thing. You go to Tobago, we go on a weekend because it's a nice place to go, right? And after 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the night, besides the big fancy restaurants, you can't go on the road and get a bacon shack, or you can't go and get a crab and dumpling or whatever. It's locked up.
There's no nightlife. There's no
Yeah,
nightlife.
yeah, and people there don't understand that they can make money. They can make money like like how you have oisins, oisins in
Oh yeah,
Barbados. Yeah,
yeah, fish fry
and
and fish fry
you understand?
Fridays. Yeah,
Oisins is packed every time you go in the night.
Like, but even just like South Beach, you go down
Yeah,
South Beach, right?
yeah.
they're
I mean,
like
you
24
know what I'm talking
24
about.
7,
Yeah,
24/7. But you
yeah,
see, Doc, a lot of it stems for the religious aspect in Tobago. A lot of them are 7 days Adventist. So on Saturday, Saturdays is their whole Sabbath.
yeah.
So they don't
Well,
do any business on
yeah,
that day. So
yeah.
that is the same,
Well,
same thing here
see,
in the Jewish community here in North Miami Beach. We
yeah,
have the same problem. They don't
yeah.
don't transmission or exchange of cash Friday night into Saturday.
Right.
So these kind of things,
Well, look,
you
if
know,
you look at Grenada as a country of so small, Saint Lucia and Tobago. If Tobago goes on their own, you think there could be a country like Saint Lucia or Grenada with that kind of culture that they have there now? It's amazing,
they can't. They can't. It's a
you know.
totally.
Well,
But
information and education, we can present it. We have to preach it until it sinks in. That's one of the things I realize, is that
I
human beings,
think
it's
it don't sink in.
one of the
it,
main problems we're going to run up in the execution of these projects is that the willingness of these ministers to be first be aware what needs to be done, and if they do have their own special agenda, that can distort and disrupt the whole execution.
Well, we informing the population at the same time here, for information and educated the population on this, So let's see how it goes. I mean, but we bring the necessary information. Hopefully somebody catches it. We do have a good listening audience. Uh,
I agree. I think that Gary, you're right. I think that
so it's not
I think
totally
that
up to the ministers. We are
yeah.
educating the people at the same time.
Yeah, I think once I mean I saw some comments even yesterday, and I one person actually contacted me privately, and was quite interesting in terms of the discussion last night and the program. So I must give you some kudos, Gary and Mr. Singh. I think that the guy spoke very highly, and he actually is has learned a lot. Even before I came on the program, apparently, conversations were being shared, and he said not just him but his family, they when he shared some of the information. So I think that the fact that people are now like listening more, we have more younger people who actually understand a little more about things. I mean, even my son never focused. He's a doctor. He's a young doctor. They didn't care up to, I mean, his age. He's the age of like Richie the doctor. They're his brothers. He's a friend of minister's brothers, and he communicates with them regularly. And they actually speak as young people, and they are more interested in the politics of the country now than they were a few years ago, and they're very interested in some of the conversations. So I feel if we continue the discourse, and if we continue creating, they themselves will actually be able to I mean, discuss with some of the friends or the brothers of some of the ministers. If you know what I mean,
But,
the
what I'm
networking
saying,
it
Duncan, not only
shares.
that,
Yeah,
but if
yeah,
the population is educated,
yeah,
they may eventually step up and say, "Well, listen, this is what I think."
yeah. But
They
yeah,
will
this is the
communicate
point.
with the policy,
Yeah,
on
this
the
is the
ground
point I'm
there.
making. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but I beg to differ a little bit because
yeah,
when the ministers having their caucuses,
yeah,
right there, they most often than not, or more often than not, is the advisor or the
yeah.
advisors and the
Correct.
with the other
Yeah,
ministers to make sure it's more interministerial,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
But how
I
does
don't know, a lot of
how
things I've said, I've seen the government take into action with it. So I mean,
how does the
reality.
average population, doc, like your son, Dr. Citron, how does their views get translated into the discussion? It does not get translated into
yeah.
the
I
discussion.
agree. I mean,
Right?
I
Yeah,
guess
I
it,
know, I
you know,
understand,
yeah,
but I
yeah,
can tell you when they're having these types of implementation discussions, there's always the project managers, the quantity surveyors, the advisors, the
yeah.
ministers for the various ministries. So the
Yeah,
regular guys like
once you're outside
on
of
the
the system.
outside,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
our views don't matter.
Well, it happened to me in the last partnership government. A lot of the things that we had said, like I remember, it just didn't happen because of the views and ministers who, for some of them, who had their own, I wouldn't say expert opinion, but maybe swayed by some of the people around them,
Yes,
and
correct.
they didn't stick to the science, and somehow the science. This is why I'm so worried about the NOC, in that I'm hoping that the same thing will happen and the ministers don't go and start up back the NOC, and then it crumbles again because the foundation is wrong. I mean, or not what it was intended to, and I'm a bit worried. But I mean, boy, sometimes I guess my wife keep telling me, don't go and get headache, and you have a 70% block in your heart now.
Yeah,
Go on
but
there, get it 80% and collapse, and when you go there, you leave us like crazy, and everybody continue what they're doing. So
yeah,
I
but
have to be so
that is
careful.
that is quite true. That's true out of concern. I mean, everybody else tells me the same thing. Why
Yeah,
you bothering your head? You settle down and I say, why you want to come back here and take on
yeah,
headache and
but
traffic?
I can't prevent it. It's just like
Same thing
you
with
sit
me.
down there
See,
and you grumble because you see things that
and
you
you
know
and the,
about. You
and the
know.
point is that you have this
Uh,
high level of expertise, willing to
uh,
share it, even though it's
uh,
willing to share it at no cost to these scams or these
yeah.
suckers.
Oh my
Just
God.
share it. I don't want no money for it. I'm just giving you for free. I want to see my country better now than when I can. You don't know how long you have to live again. Maybe 10 years, 15 years for the max, given the way things are going. Let me make sure my contributions are there.
Uh,
At least consider it or to show me where it's wrong or something like that. You know,
yeah.
but don't
Hmm.
feel you all know everything. I mean, some of the ministers would have learned their lessons from the previous time when they were
Boy,
there.
I don't know.
But
I don't know. We
most
see.
of these ministers now are young, new ministers.
Yeah.
They have nothing to fall back on. All they have is their PSs. They don't know whoever is the advisor in that ministry.
Hmm.
Not even their own advisor. It's
Yeah.
it's a sad state for
Yeah.
implementation
Yeah.
because they lack the requisite experience. One, and the PSs and they will tie up all these new ministers. They will tie them up, frustrate the process, delay all the projects, and come year five, you're back to square one. You wonder where all this time goes. You know,
Yeah, it goes fast. It's going fast.
Eh,
Look, what we are what? This is May, June, July. Yeah, we're in July
I
already. Yeah.
honestly think that, and I'm hoping that things take off after the budget in October.
October.
Yeah,
Wow.
and that's my hope that I wish it takes off
Yeah.
at that time, that they cut across the chase and
By now, I think by now they must have finished most of their assessments, right?
but no,
Um.
I don't think so. I'm not too sure, I seen today the central bank governor sent a pre-action protocol letter, suing or want to sue the state for, termination of contract, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Welcome, Anthony. Welcome, Anthony. Good. Welcome, Lindsay.
so with this thing happening now, right? And as I said yesterday, you can't have the same people all these years who have been doing these reports and expect them to do it for you the same way, man. Because there are lots of shortcomings which they have not even tackled as yet. One thing we don't know how much money is in the treasury. Can anybody say that? That's a simple question. You and I will know how much money we have in the bank at any given point in time.
Yeah.
How can the central bank not tell us what is the financial state of the country? 3 months are gone now. May, June, this is July. 10 weeks then. Say 10 weeks have passed. And you cannot tell me how much money is in the or forex.
I mean, there's one thing I am not pleased about, and I don't know how many a lot of people are going to take this, but I'm not pleased of who the governor of the central bank is. I'm telling you straight up. So that's one thing.
That's one thing, Gary. But you know what? I really don't care who it is. But tell me the question to ask that the prime minister
But I
asked
mean,
for
we want the
the
job done. We want
details.
the job done.
You
But
want the details, right? She
yeah.
asked who are the major, consumers of foreign exchange. Did they furnish that information? No. Why? I don't care who it is, but furnish the information, right? What is it used for? How many of this was for capital expenditure? How much was it for just to go back and buy consumable goods and sell it and buy back consumer? That does not generate nothing for the economy. Is it a matter of, exchange and profits to the monopolist? So this is the question. Tell me what it is used for, who is it, and I can gauge myself now and say, okay, why was the SMEs and them starved? Now we should give them a greater role, a greater amount of capital, do capital purchasing, FF&E and so on, fixtures, furnishings, equipment to start back their businesses and that is back to the economy. If that small man don't exist, who employing 3, 4 people or 10 people and so on. If that segment of the population is not there, basically you only have a lower class and upper class. There is no middle class, and that is what has killed Trinidad and Tobago. There's no middle class.
Yeah.
A very small middle class, I should say. I mean, the professional people will always be professional, but
But even so, sometimes I mean, in the last 10 years, people like professionals like some of us who didn't get any sort of employment, although we are employable. Can we catch we ass literally? Literally catch we ass.
This is the thing. I mean, you try to buy a house and see you could be.
But I nearly lost my house. Thank God, because I had had friends and family who were able to help. You see, so
this is the
thank
thing.
God.
Yep. And generally, your tastes are different. You have a little different lifestyle to the average person.
Yeah.
That is to be expected. You work hard enough to be qualified. You have to expect these things. Instead of driving a 120, why you want to drive? So I assume there's nothing wrong in that.
I had to buy a second-hand car, and every 3 days it shut it down. I had to buy new parts. So
this is the thing. People don't understand these things, boy. It's a ripple down effect. That's why I was making the point. With Indian middle class is 450 million people.
Yeah.
And I was telling you, the recent test series in Australia, 150,000 Indians went to look at the cricket match from India to Australia.
Look at that, huh?
Right? So that's 5 test matches. Break it down to like 25,000 per stadium. Right? The 25,000 people in a stadium means that they sleep, eat, go sightseeing, their family going shopping, airlines, everything packed.
Yeah.
Because these people have serious purchasing power. They can go and send their children away to study. And these are the things that scare countries like the US and Europe. How come that critical mass of people, which is the middle class, is so huge? Because they don't have to buy nothing. Everything you produce in that country is sold immediately sold. Because their consumption pattern is so large, the consumer base is so large. Whereas everything we produce in Trinidad, we can't even sell to generate no foreign exchange. My friend, he came back from India later. He said, you can walk into any bank. You can walk into any bank and buy any amount of US you want. 100,000, 50,000 US to go today with your rupees and then pick up your check in the evening. And how can a poor, the vision we have of India is that is a poor country, but how come they can buy that amount of foreign exchange in one sitting and we catch in retail, they get 200 US for the week? You can begin to see the catch tail we in for because of the foreign exchange, you see. Anyway, Gary, I think it's time, over time now. It's 11 o'clock, 11. We should wrap up, you think?
Yeah, all right, guys. I want to thank everyone for listening, joining us tonight, and we will see you tomorrow night.
Right, take care.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Right.